The space station buzzed with activity, a chaotic symphony of alien languages, clanking machinery, and the occasional hiss of pressurized doors. Zara, a tall, sleek alien with shimmering blue skin and a pair of antennae that twitched with curiosity, strode through the crowd. Her species, the Krillians, were known for their near indestructibility, thick exoskeletons, rapid healing, and an air of superiority that came with being virtually unkillable. Humans, on the other hand, were the opposite, soft, squishy, and prone to breaking. At least, that's what Zara had always believed. She spotted her target near the docking bay, a human male, mid-30s, with grease-streaked overalls and a tool belt slung low on his hips. He was elbow-deep in the guts of a malfunctioning cargo drone, muttering to himself. Zara adjusted her holographic notepad and approached, her antennae flicking in disapproval. "You must be the human," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Jake, correct?" The man glanced up, wiping his hands on a rag. "That's me. And you must be the alien who thinks humans are made of glass." Zara blinked, caught off guard. "I'm conducting a study on human physiology. Your species is fascinatingly fragile. I'm here to observe." Jake smirked. "Fascinatingly fragile, huh? Well, Doc, you're in for a treat. Humans are full of surprises." Zara's antennae twitched skeptically. "I highly doubt that. Your lack of natural armor, your susceptibility to injury, it's a miracle your species has survived this long." Jake leaned against the drone, crossing his arms. "We get by. Besides, being fragile has its perks. Ever tried squeezing through a tight space with an exoskeleton?" Zara ignored the jab. "Let's begin. I'll observe your daily activities and document any instances of fragility." "Knock yourself out," Jake said, turning back to the drone. "Just try not to get in the way." Zara watched as Jake worked, her notepad recording every movement. He was surprisingly efficient, his hands moving with practiced ease as he repaired the drone. But Zara wasn't impressed. Efficiency didn't negate fragility. If anything, it highlighted how humans had to overcompensate for their physical shortcomings. Then it happened. Jake reached for a tool on the upper shelf, stretching just a little too far. There was a loud pop, and he froze, wincing. Zara's antennae shot upright. "What was that?" she demanded. Jake rotated his shoulder experimentally, his face twisting in discomfort. "Dislocated my shoulder. Happens sometimes." Zara's eyes widened. "Dislocated? That's a serious injury. You need immediate medical attention." Jake chuckled, shaking his head. "Relax, Doc. It's not a big deal." Before Zara could protest, Jake grabbed his wrist, took a deep breath, and yanked his arm forward. There was a sickening snap, and his shoulder popped back into place. He rolled it a few times, grinning. "Good as new." Zara stared, her notepad slipping from her fingers. You just how?" Jake shrugged. "Humans are great at handling pressure. Comes with the territory." Zara's mind raced. This wasn't possible. No species could simply snap their bones back into place without medical intervention. And yet Jake had done it like it was nothing. She picked up her notepad, her hands trembling slightly. "That was unexpected." Jake smirked. "Stick around, Doc. Humans are full of surprises." Zara didn't respond. She was too busy revising her notes. Fragile? Maybe not. But she wasn't ready to admit that yet. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Zara followed Jake as he moved from one task to another, her skepticism growing with each passing hour. He was reckless, that much was clear. But there was something else, a resilience she couldn't quite explain. At one point, Jake climbed onto a precarious ledge to fix a faulty light panel. Zara held her breath, expecting him to fall at any moment. But he didn't. He balanced effortlessly, his movements precise and deliberate. When he jumped down, landing with a soft thud, Zara couldn't help but comment. "That was impressive," she admitted grudgingly. Jake grinned. "Humans are great at balancing. Comes in handy." Zara's antennae twitched. "I suppose. But one misstep could have been catastrophic. Maybe for you, Jake said, winking. For us, it's just another day at the office. Zara frowned, her notepad buzzing as it recorded the exchange. She was starting to realize that her understanding of humans was incomplete. They weren't just fragile creatures stumbling through the universe. There was more to them, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. As the day drew to a close, Zara found herself reluctantly impressed. Jake had dislocated his shoulder, climbed precarious ledges, and even fixed a malfunctioning plasma conduit with nothing but a wrench and sheer determination. And through it all, he hadn't so much as flinched. "You're different than I expected," Zara said as they walked back to the docking bay. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Stronger," Zara admitted. "More resilient. But don't let it go to your head." Jake laughed. "Wouldn't dream of it, Doc. But hey, if you're impressed now, just wait. Humans are just getting started." Zara's antennae twitched again, this time with curiosity. Maybe, just maybe, she had underestimated this species. But she wasn't ready to admit it, not yet. Zara's antennae twitched as she followed Jake through the labyrinthine corridors of the space station. Her notepad buzzed incessantly, recording every detail of his movements. She was determined to prove her theory, that humans were fragile, no matter what Jake claimed. But so far, he was making it difficult. "So," Jake said, glancing over his shoulder, "what's next on the agenda, Doc? More observations? Or are you finally ready to admit humans aren't as breakable as you think?" Zara sniffed. "Your ability to endure minor inconveniences doesn't negate your species' inherent fragility. I'm merely documenting your peculiar resilience." Jake grinned. "Peculiar, huh? I'll take that as a compliment." They rounded a corner and entered the station's engineering bay, a cavernous room filled with humming machinery and flickering holographic displays. Jake grabbed a toolkit and headed for a malfunctioning gravity generator. Zara followed, her antennae flicking with curiosity. "What's wrong with it?" she asked. Jake shrugged. "Dunno yet. But I'll figure it out. Humans are great at troubleshooting." Zara's notepad buzzed as she recorded the term. Troubleshooting. A euphemism for reckless experimentation, no doubt. Jake chuckled. "Call it what you want, Doc. As long as it gets the job done." He knelt beside the generator, his hands moving with practiced ease as he pried open the access panel. Zara watched intently, her skepticism growing. The generator was a complex piece of technology, far beyond the capabilities of most species. Surely a human couldn't. The generator sparked, and Jake jerked his hand back with a curse. Zara's antennae shot upright. "Are you injured?" Jake shook his hand, wincing. "Just a little shock. No big deal." Zara frowned. "Electric shocks can be fatal to your species. You should seek medical attention." Jake waved her off. "Relax, Doc. Humans are built to handle a little voltage. Besides, I've had worse." Zara's notepad buzzed again, but she ignored it. This human was infuriating. How could he be so cavalier about his own safety? And yet he seemed perfectly fine, his hands already back at work inside the generator. "There we go," Jake muttered, pulling out a charred component. "Just a fried capacitor. Easy fix." Zara peered over his shoulder. "You're replacing it with duct tape?" Jake grinned. "Duct tape fixes everything. It's a human tradition." Zara's antennae twitched in disbelief. "That's not a scientifically sound solution." "Maybe not," Jake said, securing the new capacitor with a strip of tape. "But it works. Watch." He closed the access panel and flipped a switch. The generator hummed to life, the flickering display stabilizing. Zara stared, her notepad buzzing furiously. "Impossible," she muttered. "That shouldn't have worked." Jake stood, brushing off his hands. "Humans are great at improvising. Comes in handy when you're in a pinch." Zara's mind raced. This wasn't resilience, this was recklessness. And yet it had worked. She couldn't deny that. Her notepad buzzed again, and she silenced it with a flick of her antennae. "Let's move on," she said stiffly. "I need more data." Jake smirked. "Your wish is my command, Doc." Their next stop was the station's climate control room, where a malfunctioning thermostat had turned the area into a sauna. Zara hesitated at the door, her exoskeleton already glistening with condensation. "It's hot," she said, stating the obvious. Jake shrugged. "Yeah, the thermostat's busted. I'll take care of it." Zara's antennae twitched. "You're going in there? Without protective gear?" Jake grinned. "Humans are built to handle a little heat. Besides, it's not that bad." Zara watched in disbelief as Jake stepped into the sweltering room, his overalls already soaked with sweat. He moved to the thermostat, his hands steady despite the oppressive heat. Zara's notepad buzzed, recording every detail. "How are you not overheating?" she called from the doorway. Jake wiped his brow. "We sweat. It's how we cool down. Pretty neat, huh?" Zara's antennae flicked in disgust. "Sweating is a primitive and inefficient cooling mechanism." "Maybe," Jake said, adjusting the thermostat. "But it works. Watch." The room's temperature began to drop, the oppressive heat giving way to a comfortable coolness. Jake stepped back, grinning. "See? Easy fix." Zara's notepad buzzed again, but she ignored it. This human was confounding. He defied every expectation, every assumption she had about his species. And yet he seemed utterly unfazed by it all. "You're different," she admitted grudgingly. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Resilient," Zara said. "More so than I anticipated. But don't let it go to your head." Jake laughed. "Wouldn't dream of it, Doc. But hey, if you're impressed now, just wait. Humans are just getting started." Zara's antennae twitched again, this time with curiosity. Maybe, just maybe, she had underestimated this species. But she wasn't ready to admit it, not yet. The station's alarms blared, a deafening wail that sent Zara's antennae vibrating in distress. Red lights flashed, casting the corridors in an eerie glow. Jake, however, seemed unfazed, his expression calm as he grabbed a wrench from his tool belt. "What's happening?" Zara demanded, her voice barely audible over the alarms. Jake glanced at a nearby monitor, his eyes narrowing. "Pirates. They've breached the outer hull. Looks like they're heading for the cargo bay." Zara's antennae twitched in panic. "Pirates? This station is supposed to be secure." "Supposed to be," Jake said, tightening his grip on the wrench. "But nothing's foolproof. Come on, we need to move." Zara hesitated. "Move? Shouldn't we evacuate?" Jake shook his head. "No time. If they get to the cargo bay, they'll strip this place clean. We need to stop them." Zara stared at him, her notepad buzzing uselessly in her hands. "You're suggesting we confront them? With a wrench?" Jake grinned. "Humans are great at improvising. Let's go." Before Zara could protest, Jake was already moving, his strides purposeful as he headed for the cargo bay. Zara hesitated, then followed, her antennae twitching nervously. This was madness. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and Jake's only weapon was a tool. And yet, he seemed utterly confident. They reached the cargo bay just as the pirates burst through the doors, their weapons gleaming in the red light. Zara's breath caught in her throat. There were at least a dozen of them, heavily armed and armored. Jake, on the other hand, looked like he was heading to a repair job. "Stay back," Jake said, his voice low. "I'll handle this." Zara's antennae flicked in disbelief. "Handle this? You're going to get yourself killed!" Jake smirked. "Relax, Doc. Humans are great at handling pressure." Before Zara could respond, Jake stepped into the open, his wrench held loosely at his side. The pirates turned, their weapons trained on him. "Well, well," one of them sneered. "Looks like we've got a hero." Jake shrugged. "Just a guy doing his job. You're trespassing." The pirate laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Trespassing? This station's ours now. And you're in the way." Jake's grin widened. We'll see about that. The pirate raised his weapon, but Jake was already moving. He ducked under the first shot, his wrench swinging in a wide arc. It connected with the pirate's knee, and the alien crumpled with a howl of pain. Jake didn't stop. He moved like a whirlwind, his wrench a blur as he disarmed and disabled the pirates with brutal efficiency. Zara watched in stunned silence, her notepad forgotten. This wasn't possible. Humans weren't supposed to be this capable. And yet, Jake was holding his own against a dozen armed pirates, his movements precise and deliberate. One of the pirates managed to land a hit, a glancing blow that sent Jake stumbling. Zara's antennae shot upright. Jake! Jake shook his head, his grin never wavering. Just a scratch. Humans are built to handle a little roughhousing. He lunged forward, his wrench slamming into the pirate's chest. The alien went down, and Jake turned to the next target. Within minutes, the pirates were either unconscious or fleeing, their confidence shattered. Jake stood amidst the chaos, his wrench resting on his shoulder. Well, that was fun. Zara stepped forward, her antennae twitching in disbelief. You defeated them. With a wrench. Jake shrugged. Like I said, humans are great at improvising. Zara's notepad buzzed, but she ignored it. This wasn't improvisation. This was something else. Something she couldn't quite explain. The station's alarm stopped, the red lights replaced by the steady glow of normal operations. Jake wiped his brow, his grin never fading. Zara, however, was still trying to process what she had just witnessed. You're different, she said finally. Jake raised an eyebrow. Different how? Stronger, Zara admitted. More resilient. But don't let it go to your head. Jake laughed. Wouldn't dream of it, Doc. But hey, if you're impressed now, just wait. Humans are just getting started. Zara's antennae twitched again, this time with curiosity. Maybe, just maybe, she had underestimated this species. But she wasn't ready to admit it, not yet. The station was quiet now, the chaos of the pirate attack replaced by the hum of machinery and the occasional beep of a repair drone. Zara sat in the observation lounge, her notepad buzzing softly as she reviewed her notes. Jake leaned against the wall nearby, a cup of coffee in hand and a satisfied grin on his face. So, he said, breaking the silence, still think humans are fragile? Zara's antennae twitched, but she didn't look up. Your performance was impressive. But it doesn't change the fact that your species lacks natural defenses. You're still vulnerable. Jake chuckled. Vulnerable, huh? Tell that to the pirates. Zara finally looked up, her expression a mix of frustration and curiosity. How do you do it? How can you be so resilient? Jake took a sip of his coffee, his grin never fading. Humans are built to adapt. We don't have exoskeletons or rapid healing, but we've got something better, ingenuity. And a little something called grit. Zara's notepad buzzed as she recorded the term. Grit. A euphemism for recklessness, no doubt. Jake shrugged. Call it what you want, Doc. As long as it gets the job done. Zara sighed, her antennae drooping slightly. I don't understand. Your species shouldn't be capable of this. And yet you are. Jake set his coffee down and walked over, leaning on the table. Maybe you're looking at it wrong. Humans aren't fragile, we're flexible. We bend, but we don't break. And when we do, we put ourselves back together. Zara's antennae twitched, her curiosity piqued. Flexible. That's an interesting way to put it. Jake grinned. Yeah. Humans are great at bending the rules. Comes in handy. Zara's notepad buzzed again, but she ignored it. This human was fascinating. Infuriating, but fascinating. She had spent her entire career studying species across the galaxy, but none had ever challenged her assumptions like Jake had. I need more data, she said finally. More observations. Jake raised an eyebrow. Still not convinced, huh? Well, I'm not going anywhere. Stick around, Doc. Humans are full of surprises. Zara's antennae twitched again, this time with a hint of amusement. I'm beginning to see that. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Zara followed Jake as he went about his duties, her notepad buzzing constantly as she recorded every detail. She watched as he repaired a malfunctioning airlock, endured a malfunctioning gravity field, and even managed to outwit a particularly stubborn AI. Through it all, Jake remained unfazed, his grin never fading. Zara, however, was starting to feel the strain. Her antennae twitched constantly, her mind racing as she tried to reconcile her observations with her preconceived notions. "How do you do it?" she asked one day as they sat in the mess hall. "How can you be so calm?" Jake shrugged. "Humans are great at rolling with the punches. Comes with the territory." Zara's notepad buzzed, but she ignored it. "But you're always so confident. Even when the odds are against you." Jake grinned. "Confidence is key, Doc. That, and a little bit of luck." Zara's antennae twitched in frustration. "Luck isn't a scientifically sound explanation." "Maybe not," Jake said, leaning back in his chair. "But it works. Watch." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a coin, flipping it into the air. It spun, catching the light before landing neatly in his palm. He grinned. "Heads. Looks like I'm on a roll." Zara stared at him, her antennae twitching in disbelief. "You're impossible." Jake laughed. "Nah, just human. And like I said, humans are full of surprises." Zara's notepad buzzed again, but she ignored it. This human was something else. And she was starting to realize that her understanding of his species was woefully incomplete. As the days turned into weeks, Zara found herself reluctantly impressed. Jake had proven time and time again that humans were anything but fragile. They were resilient, resourceful, and utterly unpredictable. And yet he seemed utterly unfazed by it all. "You're different," she admitted one day as they stood in the observation lounge, watching the stars. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Stronger," Zara said. "More resilient. But don't let it go to your head." Jake laughed. "Wouldn't dream of it, Doc. But hey, if you're impressed now, just wait. Humans are just getting started." Zara's antennae twitched again, this time with a hint of amusement. Maybe, just maybe, she had underestimated this species. But she wasn't ready to admit it, not yet.